So part of the unofficial free agency involves the reports yesterday that the Bears will sign, once they are able to do so, Andy Dalton to a 1-year, $10 million deal to become their quarterback. And, hey, anytime you're talking 8 figures, you assume he's installed as the starter. You assume he's the guy, just like Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington. $10 million deal for him. He's the guy. Doesn't take you out of play to draft a guy.
Right.
But to me, that tells me no Trubisky. Maybe Foles hangs around. I think he's got a low salary. No trade for Russell Wilson. Andy Dalton's our guy. This is our guy, pending whatever we may do in round 1.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. It does. I mean, it's underwhelming if you're a Bears fan, certainly. But I do think the Bears exhausted all options in trying to get Russell Wilson. From everything I know, people I trust around the NFL, they also were making calls to the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson. Of course, we know that that's not happening right now. But they had to make a move at some point. So they went with a guy in Andy Dalton who, like a Tyrod Taylor, but even more, of course, has a little more starting experience as a low-level starter or one of the best backups in football. And except on this occasion, with Andy Dalton too, there's commonplace as far as knowing the system and how that works, right? Bill Lazor's there as one of the offensive coordinators, offensive minds, so he's going to understand, the ins and outs of the system that way. And they're stuck. They're stuck in a spot right now where there's really not any other options out there at quarterback other than the draft, or maybe if something happens with a Deshaun Watson, or maybe if something happens with the Jets and they finally just let it be known that, hey, they're taking the quarterback at number 2. And then maybe that can free some guys up, or Sam Darnold becomes free. There's still the Jimmy G aspect out there, but how long can you wait? It's a little like, the New England Patriots with Cam Newton. We talked about that yesterday. At some point you want to start formulating your team and just getting it together instead of sitting there going, whoa, okay, it's early April and we still didn't get our quarterback and we got to figure this out. So I don't blame them for this, even though I don't think it's going to excite the Bears fan base a whole lot.
But they got to do somebody, or they're going to have nothing. They're going to have nothing. And then they're going to get –
then they're going to get Nick Foles
squeezed. They're going to get squeezed to overpay for Sam Darnold, to give up a first-round pick in 2022 after round 1 of 2021. And same thing applies to the Bears that applies to Washington. Now that they have a veteran to whom they're going to pay a base rate of $10 million, it's not as obvious as the picks go through the teens that you are in the quarterback market. You don't have to be in the quarterback market, and maybe you don't get jumped, and maybe there's a quarterback there that you would be interested in because a team behind you is thinking, they're not going to go quarterback. They have their guy. And those two teams, Washington and Chicago, are back-to-back, bang, bang, 19 and 20. Yeah. So they had to do something. They had to move. And look, Andy Dalton took the Bengals to the playoffs 5 straight years.
There's no doubt.
It's not like he's horrible.
No.
And he had moments last year for the Dallas Cowboys, went to Minnesota and beat them. I mean, if you're the Bears, you're going to Minnesota at some point this year, and they're coming to you. Right. There's a guy who took a Cowboys team and beat the Vikings.
No, I hear you. There's some positives there. There's no doubt about that. It's similar to Nick Foles, except he's better than Nick Foles. He's got a little more athleticism to his game. Quicker release, a little bit more of an aggressive nature that way. So, and like we talked about, he knows the system. Added to that, you talk about like the drafting thing. I just can't imagine the Bears being in the draft, for quarterback play, at least. I don't envision that. Nagy and Pace are, we know the seat's hot. Their butt's hot. So I don't think they're going to waste a pick on a quarterback at this point. They got to do everything they can to make this year work. I mean, I almost look at them and go, okay, it's playoffs or they might be out. Or, if they barely miss the playoffs, okay, maybe they save themselves that way. But I just don't envision the drafting of the quarterback. You're right. Maybe there's a trade that happens, something like that, but it takes the pressure off the situation, and at least they got one guy here they know they can rely on.
There is one argument to be made. I don't know how persuasive it will be, that if you do draft a guy in round 1, let's say some guy slides down the board that they've convinced others in the organization they really like, that they end up getting that dispensation. They end up getting another year beyond 2021 so we can see what the guy they drafted does in 2022. That would be the football political reason to consider taking a quarterback at that spot, because that's the thing. If you do take a guy that Nagy and Pace like, and you fire both of them after this year, you've used a first-round pick on a guy that the next regime may say, we don't want him.
Right.
So that's a reason to at least ponder it. But you're right. Their interests are best served by being as good as they can be in 2021, and now it looks like Andy Dalton's going to be the guy that they try to do that with.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.